Hey, son,
Yeah?
I got you a Christmas present.
You did?
Yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Merry Christmas, son. I'm proud of you.
What is this?
We know how you said you really wanted a superhero show?
Yeah?
There it is. I got you Legends of Tomorrow.
Where's the superheroing?
Oh, it's in there. It's just buried up under all the character subplots and emotional pandering. What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Legends of Tomorrow, Season 7, Episode 10, The Fixed Point. So it's really ironic about this. This is the first episode since the Gideon one where I feel like the story was really, really well set up. I mean, you've got this idea about this bar, the fixed point, these other time travelers that have come here to try to see if they can change it. Because, yeah, if other time travelers exist, why wouldn't they try to change something as big as that? Just to see what would happen. The idea of stopping a war that killed so many people, most idiots would probably be like, yeah, let's do it. Because, of course, as I've talked about, changing history is something that we don't know what that would cause. We don't know the consequences that would follow. Maybe it would be even worse if that didn't happen. But especially for our heroes, where their whole thing is about trying to keep the timeline intact, I am glad that they did not go with, they want to change this because, hey, we're trying to do good stuff. It's they want to change it to draw this evil Gideon in so that way they can take the Wave Rider back and all of that. It's a pretty solid idea for the episode. And on top of that, this fixed point bar, I think is a pretty good setup. You know, all these different time travelers getting their chance to go in, and then of course all of them fail. I will say it maybe was a little bit predictable that there was some force. They said it was time, but I kind of figured it was actually a person that represented time, possibly, or that was working for time. I figured it was somebody that was doing it. I wasn't sure how they were going to handle it, what exactly was going to be keeping all these people from changing the timeline. But to find out that apparently Thawne had been recruited basically to guard that fixed point in time, I think that's a pretty good setup for me. You know, he could stop time, and that's how he kept changing everything to make it to where everybody failed. I like it. It's a good plot twist to have him back. It's a good setup for his powers and why people are not able to change this fixed point in time. And I think the resolution they come to as well, where he basically gives them 40 minutes of, yeah, we'll change this a little bit. We're not going to stop it from happening, but I can at least make it seem like it's about to be stopped from happening, and that will allow you guys to draw in the Wave Rider. Now, the two things that I will say are a little bit up in the air for me. First of all, the fact that he's the one that's here, it does make me wonder, okay, but what about the Thawne in the Flash right now? The one that looks like Harrison Wells. A lot of weird time stuff, and I don't know if the writers are communicating because we just had Thawne over there, and now we have Thawne here. It feels very odd to have two different versions of Thawne. Somehow neither of them have disappeared from time, but whether or not he actually would be okay with this, that's also a little bit of a question because he's not really shown to be much else outside of a monster, at least not that I can remember. I know he was the main villain on one season of the Legends, but I don't really remember how that season came to an end because it's been a long time since I watched the show. So maybe he was a little bit more sympathetic on the show, but it did feel like Sarah convinced him a little bit too easily. But that was all the good stuff, because the rest of this episode was absolute shit. Because it feels like one of the writers came in and said, hey, I've got this really great idea for a plot for this episode about stopping the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand. And whoever the director, writer, producer, whatever for this episode was just like, oh, cool, yeah, so we'll stick that at the bottom of the pile, but let's focus on these other stories because we got some real gold here. Like apparently Spooner is asexual? Could you believe that? And then also we've got Gwen. He's trying to save Alan, but he can't be with Alan because he wants to make sure that Alan survives, but he doesn't know about it so that he could still invent time travel. But also it's because it doesn't coincide with his beliefs for him to be gay, so he's not going to live out with the love of his life. And so we're going to tell him that that's wrong. We're going to tell him, hey, your religion, it's wrong. You have to respect us. You can't tell us that we're wrong or anything, but we can tell you your religion is wrong. So yeah, both of those stories were just kind of stupid, pandering bullshit that I'm kind of used to the CW shows doing, but it took up a lot of time. Like, so much time, and I'm sitting here going, can we get back to the more interesting stories, please? Can we get back to what's fun about this episode, this idea of trying to change this fixed point in time and how everybody keeps failing. Sarah going through all these different deaths while she's trying to change. Can we get back to that, please? Can we not sit here and spend all of this like super meaningful just time with these characters, and you should be with the one you love, and hey, it's okay if you don't love anybody. Oh my God. Thing is, I know that's going to upset some people, and that's fine. I don't really care at this point. But my God, it's like the writers are just so full of themselves. Like they really do think if we write this in here, we're going to be touching people's lives. And I've said this before, but if you define yourself based on who you're attracted to or not attracted to, if that is your whole, that's who I am, you're living a very sad life, because there's so much more to life than attraction, than sexual attraction. Like that is one part of you. And to identify yourself, to make that your identity. Because that's what, honestly, I feel like a lot of these different sexualities that are happening now, it's because everybody wants to have a thing to identify themselves. Why do you need that to be your identity? Why does your sexual attraction, why does that have to be your identity? That's one part of you. I don't want to spend too much time here because I could talk about this for a while, because I have a lot of thoughts that I do want to get out because I'm very frustrated with how this episode handled it. But the big thing for me is the main plot for this episode was very, very interesting, and we spent way too much time talking about that part of it, talking about the who's attracted to who. Spent so much time on this whole story of Gwen and how he doesn't feel like he can love Alan because of what he believes in, and for Spooner, oh well, she's not really attracted when they first started with the whole Spooner and Zari thing, I'm just thinking, why is this even a story? And then they got to that part where Zari's asking her who she's into, and she's like, not really. That's all of a sudden when it clicked in my head. I'm like, oh, we're going to have her being asexual because that's a big thing for her. Why? I don't know. It just is, guys. The other two stories that got some time that were definitely not interesting either. Gideon was struggling with this whole, like, trying to find out about time and all of that. It ended up not being that big of a deal anyway, because we found out, obviously, Eobard was the one doing all this, and that just kind of vindicated her because she was questioning herself, questioning whether she should know everything about time or not, and I don't know. It was just, we spent a few different scenes on that for some reason, and I don't really know why, because it didn't really lead to anything. But then the final thing is there were these bullies that were in the bar that kept picking on him because they were the failure Legends of Tomorrow. And to me, it just reaffirmed the idea that these writers for this show, for The Flash, for most of the CW outside of Superman and Lois, they're all Disney Channel writers, because this was a Disney Channel story. You could even look at like the old school Nickelodeon shows. This is a kid's story. Like, oh, these guys are picking on me because I messed up, because I'm a loser. Oh, don't worry, you're not a loser. And by the end of it, the bullies are going to turn themselves around and be like, hey, we're going to give you our ticket because you guys aren't washed up. Yeah, the power of friendship. Meanwhile, you go over to Superman and Lois is dealing with trying to figure out how to talk to this girl who is apparently her daughter from another world that she didn't have in this world because she had a miscarriage. And now this girl obviously sees her as her dead mother. That storyline, who wants to see that, right? Who wants to see that really mature? Neither of them are bickering about it. They're both upset with how the situation is. Lois is upset because of how she handled it originally. The maturity involved in all that. Who wants that? Give me bully storylines. Give me sexual identity storylines. Give me all of that, because isn't that just so much more fun? Isn't it so much more fun to turn your brain off and go, oh, what's going to happen now? What in this superhero show is going to happen now? Are they going to do superhero stuff, or are we going to talk about our feelings? So yeah, obviously this show is not written for me, but I'm here because we've got 3 episodes left, and I just want to see how it ends at this point. I watched all the way through to now. I know I've said this before this season, but really disappointed that this show went from a show that was goofy, didn't take itself too seriously, had a lot of fun with the concept and the characters, and it was a fun adventure. Traveling through time, they would talk about some deeper stuff. They would sometimes have, enlightening discoveries about themselves, but it felt like it was still just fun. They had fun with it. They didn't spend all this time talking about feelings. They didn't spend all of this time on these stupid side stories that are so important to these characters. It felt like even when they did spend time on the character stuff, it felt like it was more of a side story. This episode, it felt like the side stories were the main story. They took up so much time. I feel like there was hardly any time spent on the actual stuff going on, what they're trying to do here. So anyways, with all that being said, I gotta hope that these last 3 episodes are at least exciting, but on to the next episode. I'll see you there. And now episode 11, Rage Against the Machines. So this one was better, but it was only because it was focused on the actual superheroing part of the show, you know, them trying to take down the Robo Legends and Evil Gideon as well. It wasn't really that interesting, if I'm being honest. A couple of funny moments here and there, but for the most part, I've seen this show go crazier. I've seen this show go more ridiculous with its ideas, and I feel like that's when it's at its best, is when it's being really ridiculous. And it just wasn't. I mean, if I'm being perfectly honest, it kind of felt like they were almost holding back a little bit. Like they still wanted us to take this seriously for some reason. I don't know why. Is anybody watching this show as a serious drama, as like a true action show? I've always seen it as a good comedic superhero show. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a parody show, but it definitely does feel like they like to make jokes at their own expense. They like to poke fun at other superhero stuff. I don't understand why this season it feels like it's really trying to take itself much more seriously. It just felt like there were several moments thrown in that they felt a lot more. You think about whenever Gwen sees Sarah, her body gets thrown in after Robo Nick breaks her neck. It was a serious moment with him where he actually has to go back and try to calm himself down, overcome his PTSD, which I don't know if it's that easy to do, but he remembers a lot of the good stuff that's happened to him recently, and that allows him to be calm enough to get Sarah out of there before Robo Nick can torture her for information. That wasn't really that funny. You've also got like Bayrod sneaks onto the ship as himself. Wasn't any really funny jokes there. I feel like there was potential for that, but the best that they came up with was a vomit and shit joke where, oh, we can make something that they'll drink and then they have to go to the bathroom and then we'll push them into hell. Okay. You've got the whole, there's 2 Zaris and they're not sure which one is the real one, and they don't really do anything funny with that. Zari just eventually wins the battle and takes her RoboCell's chip out of her head. That's not funny. It felt like a legit, well, honestly, it didn't even feel like a legit fight because they clearly wanted to try to do something cool with it, where, oh, we have the actress playing Zari, we have her on both sides of it. We actually have her try to get into a fight with herself. I mean, obviously not the whole fight. There were some that were a little bit more close up where they were clearly holding each other. Definitely used 2 different actresses for that. But there were some where you could tell they had her be on both sides of the fight, and they were like swinging, like doing the, ooh, I'm going to hit you, like slap fight type of stuff. I feel like it could have been funnier if the actress playing Zari maybe had a little bit more physical comedy, but she's not really been a physical comedy type of actress for most of this show. So I don't feel like that was the character to do it with. Maybe you could have gotten away with it with Gary. Spooner has had some decent physical comedy moments. Maybe Ava. I don't know. It just, for me, Zari's not the one that I think of physical comedy for. So if you're going to have the same actress fight on both sides and swing and miss a lot, because obviously she can't get any hits off, Zari's not the character that I would do that with. I don't feel like it makes sense for her. So that just, it didn't feel as funny as it could have been. And again, there was nothing really that came out of it. Gary and Astro are just standing off to the side deciding, or trying to figure out which one's the real one, and like, oh, Gary, can you eat both of them and spit out the real one? Oh, maybe, I guess. Is that funny? Is there anything funny in that? If he'd actually done that, that would have been different. I don't think I've ever seen this setup of an idea resolved by having another character eat both of them and then spit out the real one. Like, that would have been definitely out there, but of course they don't go with that because I don't know why. They decided, hey, we'll just have Zari win the fight and then be mad that he was about to eat her. There's also a moment where Spooner pretends to be the Robo Spooner, and the Robo Gary falls for it and eats the Robo Spooner, and then they blow up. Is Gary that stupid? Is Robo Gary that stupid? I mean, I guess they did show him being kind of dumb in the first episode where we saw the Robo Legends. Robo Spooner's been dressed the exact same basically since you first met her. And then this other version of Spooner's dressed differently. This one is dressed exactly like the one you know. Is he that dumb? So that setup for me was just stupid, but in the wrong ways. Like, not funny. Kind of dumb in its setup. So yeah, it felt like there were several moments where there was comedic potential, comedic possibilities, and then they didn't carry through with it. And they either went serious with it or they went stupid with it. And I don't know, I feel like the show has done silly before, but in a more comedic way. It gets me laughing or chuckling, or at least I'm watching it having a good time. I'm entertained. I was not really entertained by this episode. I didn't really have a good time with it. And that's kind of a damning indictment on the show. Couple things to talk about story-wise. So first of all, Gideon, the evil one, I do have to question again, how does she not have any sort of failsafe? And granted, there are 2 episodes left, so maybe she does, and that's why there are still 2 episodes left. But the fact that Zari can just come into the ship and Gideon threatens to take out the oxygen to kill them all, and she just basically goes over, rips out the wiring, and end of story. It feels very easy to take down an AI that is supposed to be in control of the ship. So I still feel like they really undervalue how powerful Gideon should be. Like, I really don't understand. If she is supposed to be in control of the ship outside of the bathroom, how is she not able to just stop them? First of all, how is she not able to hear what they're saying, see what they're talking about? It just feels like she's very limited for an AI that runs the ship. So that's something that I still feel like, unless they're going to show that no, she is really powerful and just ripping out the wiring does not actually stop her, and she does have backup plans or whatever. If they show that in the next couple episodes, then cool. At least they thought ahead of that. But if she really is gone and the last 2 episodes are going to be about, I guess, finishing up the series, then I'm going to have to call bullshit and say you really ended this final season with a very underwhelming villain. Because the idea of an evil Gideon that is so focused on the timeline that she wants to kill the legends because they make mistakes, that to me, that could be an interesting setup. She makes robot versions of them. They're very efficient. That has potential. And honestly, it could even be you've got the comedic guys versus the straight men. The good guys are funny, they're goofy, they're silly, they mess stuff up. Meanwhile, the robot versions of them are very straightforward, they're very dry in their humor. And that could be its own counterbalance that would work really well for a comedic situation. But instead, what you did is you made these robot versions also very goofy, just in a different way. They're much more action, goofy, serious, whereas the team is very emotional and trying to solve all of these problems in history that are going to change the timeline. I don't know. It feels like the setup, again, was there, and they just did not go through with it. And now it feels like it's kind of done. But who knows? We'll see what happens. Having Thawne get stabbed, I thought was a weird decision. It sets up for, well, maybe Sarah has to stay here now at this fixed point. Maybe somebody decides to take her place so she can be with Ava, and there's another emotional sacrifice or something. But just having him get stabbed by the Robo Sarah makes him kind of feel stupid because he has the ability to stop time. So when he sees her pull out the knife, he should be like, oh, not going to let that happen. Let me just doop. But no, he just sits there. The fact that she's changed clothes, he should kind of be a little put off by that, thinking, I don't know, something's weird about this. I'm going to stop time and see if I can figure out what's going on here. So it just felt like they needed him to be an idiot so he could die, and then set up for this possible emotional farewell to Sarah for her to guard this fixed point in time. But then they sort of go around it by putting it on RoboNate, or tricking him to put it on. And for me, that's not satisfying. Because first of all, you've basically found a loophole. So this emotional moment is now undercut by basically a joke, which I will say, the whole Arnold voice almost made me laugh. It was close. I thought his personality was actually funnier whenever he wasn't Arnold. He was just... Also, I think I've been saying RoboNate. Nick is the actor. I think I've done that before, because Nick and Nate are just too close. But him being the one that's going to stay there for the fixed point in time, outside of it being sort of a loophole to get around the emotional stuff, it also does not make sense if you really think about it, because you want somebody there who's going to be able to keep bad things from happening. What's he going to do? Let's be real about this. He's an idiot. I know I just talked about how Thawne had to be an idiot for him to die, but he is truly an idiot. He's not the brightest. He's not going to be able to figure out how to stop people from changing that fixed point in time. Are the people that put Thawne in there going to be like, oh, hey, a robot? Sure, we'll go with that. Is that what's going to happen? Are they going to talk to him and explain to him what's going on? And is he going to be able to understand the responsibility? Is he going to be okay with just being stuck there every day for the rest of his life stopping the assassination from happening? And when he does stop it, is he going to be able to do it in a way that's not going to break the timeline even more? Because he has shown he's very ruthless in how he handles things. So how do we know he's not going to brutalize somebody in front of everyone and set off some other issues? I feel like there's a lot of flaws with this, but it just sort of, yeah, we're good. And I hope that's not how it ends. I hope we're going to have to maybe deal with it another way. Maybe it will come back. Whoever put Thawne there will come in and say, hey, nice try, but no, we're not doing this super killer robot in the place of Thawne because he's not going to be able to handle this job. So I'll hold off my judgment until I see the end and see if they do bring that back. But if it doesn't come back and we're just done and that's the end of the story for that, it's kind of bullshit. It's kind of bullshit. And then, of course, the final thing is the hook at the end of the episode to get you to watch the next one because Gideon gets stabbed by, I think it was Robo Spooner, if I'm not mistaken, which means somehow she survived getting blown up inside Gary's stomach, or Robo Gary's stomach. It feels like everything's sort of wrapped up nicely, but there's 2 episodes left, so Gideon gets stabbed. Oh, come back and watch the final 2 episodes. Or, and hear me out, I know this is going to sound crazy, ridiculous for me to even suggest, you could write a good story that carries all the way to the end and then maybe has 1 episode left for an epilogue instead of let's write a story that ends 2 episodes early and then we have to throw in this other story, which the whole Astra being her mother thing, I didn't even really think about that because it's kind of pointless for me. It's there. I don't really get it. Astra's been fine this season, I thought, but throwing in this emotional story for her, is it necessary? I'm assuming that this is going to lead to, now that she's been stabbed, Astra, of course, is going to feel really guilty about it. She's going to feel like she failed her. Also, I am confused how, if this is, again, could be Robo somebody else, but it looked like Robo Spooner to me. She was very messed up. I don't know if maybe one of the robots that got thrown into hell somehow made their way back and that's why they were burned. But again, it doesn't feel impactful. It doesn't feel like the gut punch that one of the main characters getting stabbed should feel like. I don't really feel anything. I feel like this is the writer's manipulation trying to get me pumped up for the final episode, and I'm not. Yeah, it's just not really, it's not a good setup for the final 2. I'm here. I'm watching, taking in the information. It's kind of where I am. I feel very disconnected from the show right now, and that's disappointing because, again, in the past, I've had a lot of fun. I feel like I've enjoyed the comedy. I've enjoyed the action. I've enjoyed the goofy characters. Now I don't really feel like I care anymore. I don't feel like I want to see these characters succeed. They could all die and I'd be whatever. With all that being said, that's it for these 2 episodes. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on these 2? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Legends of Tomorrow reviews. Also check out the channel. We have a lot of TV show reviews as well as some Let's Plays on here. So check those out if you have time. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day. And I'll talk to you all later. Peace out.